Let's talk about the emergence of the modern world. Fort Jesus stands guard over the entrance to the harbor of Bambusa, Kenya's second largest city and major port. Built by the Portuguese in the 1590s, it was captured and recaptured at least 9 times, falling to Omani Arabs in 1698 after a 2-year siege before finally being taken over by the British in 1895. The fort no longer services a defensive purpose, but it has stood as a witness to the emergence of what we now think of as the modern world. Its construction followed in the wake up of Portuguese success in navigating their way around Africa. Its ownership changed hands as political influence in the region moved from one power to another, and more recently, the fort has witnessed the arrival of naval vessels from major military powers, of tankers from major oil producers, of containers carrying goods through the global trading system, of tourists seeking the palm trees and white sands of Kenyan coast, and of terrorists seeking to make a political point. The single building symbolizes and captures many, but by no means all, of the changing qualities of what we now define as the global. The ideas and forces that encouraged people to build connections with one another and to redefine boundaries and opportunities. They have migrated, invaded, and gone to war with one another, but trade connections, build cooperative institutions, and agreed complex rules for governing their interactions. The fact has been to change the way they are themselves, they see themselves and each other, and to reshape cultures, economies, governments, and the physical environment. And how and why did this happen? For the majority of human history, in what we might call the pre-modern era, most people were local in their experiences, their outlook, and their consciousness. Some societies were and remained nomadic, others participated in migrations and invasions that took them to new locations, and yet others traded with one another. But most people had neither the capacity nor the desire to travel, and their interest and knowledge rarely extended far beyond their immediate farm, village, or town. Unless they were wealthy or powerful, most lived and died not far from where they were born, and knew little of the wider world. Politic, Political and economic relationships were geographically limited in scope, and even the few who left home as soldiers, explorers, and entrepreneurs, and little idea what they would find over the horizon, and no certainty that they would see home again. Today's circumstances are quite different. The modern world is distinctive for the reach and interconnectedness of human interests and contexts. True, most people still have neither the time nor the resources to travel far from home and continue to live in or near the communities in which there were connections. People travel and migrate in greater numbers. They can follow the news and collect information from around the world with relative ease, and they are routinely subject to the effects of decisions made hundreds or even thousands of kilometers away. At the same time, the world has been influenced by common ideas, languages, and cultures promoted by the global reach of corporations, media, and technologies. Although we think of globalization as a relatively new phenomenon, The process of building global connections began centuries ago. This process was long dominated by chains emanating from Europe because it was Europeans who led the way in exploring, colonizing, and industrializing. As a result, the building of the global system was founded on values and ideas emanating from the West. Washington came to sit at the heart of what we define as the modern world. It would be wrong, though, to think of either modernity or the global system as Western, or to think that Western is European. True, the West has deeply influenced most other parts of the world, and it remains powerful in political, economic, and cultural terms. But this is not the end of the story. It is important, for example, we recognize that the West was shaped and influenced to a large degree by external ideas and pressures. Consider, for example, the influence of the Arabs on Europe is still seen today in much of the architectures of Spain and felt more widely in Arabic numerals and decimal system, algebra, geometry, and the concept of zero, and many Arabic words used in Western science, such as nadr, zenith, alkali, and alcohol. It is also important to recognize that many people in the world have lives and values that are distinctly non-Western, and some make a point of struggling against the historical dominance of the West. Finally, it is important to notice that while much of the history told in this work, much of the history our our future promises to be influenced deeply by Asia. Strictly speaking, modern means the present, but the historians date the modern era to the early 16th century and the European Renaissance. It was during the early modern era, lasting from approximately 1450 to the French Revolutions in 1789, that transformative change came came to science, technology, politics, and the arts in Europe, forming the basis for its expansion. Change had also come to China, India, West Africa, the Middle East, and the Americas, and Europe was not unaffected. It was impacted by the spread of the Arab empires speaking in the 10th century and later by the expansion of the Ottoman Empire.